My name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm 78 years old. I've got silver hair that still curls when it's humid, hands that are more matte than skin, and a voice that shakes only when I laugh too hard, which, thank the Lord, is often. Tonight, I'm sitting in my little sunroom in Willow Creek, North Carolina, the one with the yellow door and the wind chimes made from old spoons. The camera on my phone is propped on a stack of books, red light winking, and there are 312,000 people waiting for me to start talking. 312,000 souls who found their way to an old woman's YouTube channel called Silver Linings with Evelyn. They come for the garden tips, the sourdough recipes, the stories about raising grandchildren and losing husbands and finding yourself again at 60. But tonight, they're here for the one I've never told in full. The one that begins with a single text message. Let me know when she leaves. My best friend of 34 years wrote that to my husband of 41. And my revenge? It shocked every single person who thought they knew me. Grab your tea, darlings. This is going to be long because healing never happens in a 30-second reel. It happens in seasons, in small mercies, in the slow turning of years. And I want you to feel every one of them. It was 2009. I was 58 years old, still wearing the same size 8 I'd worn on my wedding day, still dyeing my hair chestnut because Harold liked it that way. We lived in a brick colonial in Richmond, Virginia, the one with the wraparound porch and the magnolia tree Harold planted the day our daughter Claire was born. Harold was 62, handsome in that quiet, silver-templed way that made waitresses blush. He sold industrial HVAC systems, which sounds boring until you realize he could talk a penguin into buying ice. People loved him. I loved him. I had loved him since I was 17, and he fixed him with a broken heart and a worse haircut at church camp. Margaret, Maggie, was my best friend since college. We met in 1970 in a dorm laundry room when we both reached for the same box of Tide. She laughed, I laughed, and 40 years later, she was still the person I called when the minute anything happened, good, bad, or catastrophic. She was Claire's godmother. She was at every birthday, every hospital room, every Christmas morning. When my mother died, Maggie slept on the floor beside my bed for a week. So when I saw that text on Harold's phone, the world didn't just tilt, it shattered. I had only picked up his phone because mine was charging and Claire had sent a picture of the grandbabies. Harold was in the shower singing Brown-Eyed Girl off-key the way he had since 1972. The screen lit up. Maggie, let me know when she leaves. Can't wait to have you all to myself finally. I stood in our bedroom, in my yellow robe, the one with the frayed hem, reading it over and over until the words stopped making sense and started carving. On the 8th day, I got up, put on lipstick the color of defiance, Revlon Fire and Ice, same shade I wore the day I married him, and drove to the bank. Harold had always said money bored me. That was convenient for him. What he never noticed was that I paid every bill, balanced every checkbook, and quietly moved mad money into a separate account for 30 years. I called it my dream fund. He laughed and called it cute. By 2009, it had $187,000 in it. Money from teaching piano lessons, selling jams at the farmer's market, birthday checks from my daddy I never spent. I withdrew it all in cashier's checks. Then I called my lawyer, Marlene, who I'd met at water aerobics and who hated men on principle ever since her 3rd divorce. She became my general. Evelyn, she said, we are about to make your husband wish he'd never learned how to text. We didn't go for blood. We went for bone. Harold had been siphoning money into an account for Maggie for 6 years. Vacations, jewelry, a condo in Myrtle Beach, titled in her name alone. Marlene found it all. The affair had been going on for 9 years. 9 years. Claire's wedding, my 50th birthday trip to Italy. The Christmas Eve I had pneumonia and they went to look at lights together and came back flushed and laughing. 9 years. I filed quietly. I moved out while he was at a conference in Atlanta with Maggie. I took only what was mine: my mother's china, my piano, my clothes, the quilt my grandmother pieced during the Depression, and every photograph of me and the children. I left him the ones with Maggie cropped out. I rented a tiny apartment above a bakery in Asheville. The smell of bread drifted up through the floorboards every morning at 4 a.m., and I decided that was God's way of saying, "Wake up, girl, your life is starting again." The divorce was final on a Tuesday in March. Harold got the house. I got the dream fund plus half the retirement plus the Myrtle Beach condo, which I sold the next week for cash. Net result? I walked away with enough to buy a small farmhouse on 2 acres outside Willow Creek and still have money left to breathe. Harold married Maggie 4 months later. They sent me an invitation. I sent back the RSVP card with a single Post-it. "Congratulations, I'm busy living my best life." And then I did. I bought the ugliest little house you ever saw. Peeling green paint, sagging porch, yard full of kudzu. The realtor apologized. I fell in love. I paid cash and named her Magnolia, after the tree Harold planted the day Claire was born. I was 59 years old, divorced and free for the first time in my life. People waited for me to fall apart. My sister Ruth called every day for a month. "Ev, are you eating? Are you safe? Do you need me to come?" Claire flew in twice, eyes red, ready to fight dragons for me. But something miraculous happened instead. I started waking up happy. Not the loud kind of happy, the quiet, stunned kind. The kind where you feel when the sun hits your face and you realize nobody is going to criticize the way you load the dishwasher today. I painted the house butter yellow. I planted roses along the fence, peace roses, the kind that smell like heaven and forgiveness. I adopted a 3-legged dog named Tripod who showed up starving and decided I was his person. I learned to make sourdough from the bakery downstairs and started selling it at the farmer's market on Saturdays. And one Saturday in June, a woman named Rosa, 63, eyes like burnt sugar, fresh off her own divorce, bought a loaf and started crying right there in the sunshine. "He left me for his secretary," she said. 38 years. I handed her a tissue and the second loaf for free. The next week, she came back with her sister, then her neighbor, then a woman whose husband had died and left her lonely, then a widow who just wanted to learn how to make bread so her house wouldn't feel so empty. By fall, I was teaching sourdough classes in my kitchen on Thursday nights. 12 women around my scarred oak table, flour in our hair, wine in our cups, stories pouring out like yeast bubbling over. We called ourselves the Rising Sisters. Word spread. Women started driving hours. Someone made a Facebook page. Someone else made a website. By the time I turned 62, I had a waiting list and a little cabin out back we turned into a guest house for women who needed to get away for a weekend and remember who they were before the world told them who to be. I never advertised, never charged more than the cost of flour and electricity. I just opened the door and said, "Come in, darling. The oven's hot and you are safe here." That was the first miracle. The second was Claire. She showed up one Thursday night with a suitcase and eyes swollen shut from crying. Her husband David, sweet, quiet David, who I'd loved like a son, had been caught with a coworker. They were separating. I put her in the guest house, made her tea with too much honey, and let her ugly cry on my couch until dawn. The next morning, I handed her an apron. Yeast doesn't care if your heart is broken, I said. It rises anyway. Watch. We baked 12 loaves that day. Claire burned the first 3, cried over the 4th. By the 12th, she was laughing because the dough finally obeyed her. She stayed 6 months, learned to make croissants that could make a grown man weep, started dating a gentle woodworker named Daniel, who looked at her the way Harold used to look at me before everything went sour. They married in my backyard, under the magnolia tree that I'd brought as a sapling from Richmond. I officiated, wore a purple hat big enough to block the sun. Harold and Maggie heard about it, of course. Small towns talk, and my little bakery had somehow become famous in certain circles. Food and Mind did a piece called The Divorce Bread That Heals. Oprah's people called. I said no, because I'm contrary like that. Harold showed up one Saturday in 2017. I was 70, hair completely silver now, wearing overalls and flour to my elbows, signing copies of my little self-published cookbook, Rising, Bread and Other Miracles. He stood at the edge of the crowd, looking smaller than I remembered, thinner, older. Maggie wasn't with him. She left him 2 years earlier for a jazz musician in Charleston, took the dog and the good towels. "Eve," he said, voice cracking. I looked at him for a long moment, remembered the boy who carried me over puddles at church camp, the man who held my hand when Claire was born, the stranger who chose Maggie over me. I handed him a loaf still warm from the oven. "On the house," I said. He cried right there in front of God and everybody. Big shoulder-shaking sobs. People pretended not to notice, Southern polite. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I lost everything." I touched his cheek, the way I used to when he had the flu. "You didn't lose everything," I said gently. "You lost me. And I was always the best thing you had." Then I went back to signing books. That was the revenge. Not screaming, not slashing tires, not posting their texts on Facebook, though Lord knows I thought about it. The revenge was living so well that the man who broke me had to stand in my sunshine and feel the warmth he threw away. Maggie sent a letter once, long, scented with the same perfume she wore when she sat at my Thanksgiving table. She was alone, sick, regretting everything. Asked if she could visit. I wrote back on a recipe card. "Dearest Maggie, the oven is always warm, but some doors, once closed, stay closed. Make your own bread. Love, Evelyn." I never heard from her again. And that's the part that shocks people the most. They expect screaming fights, public humiliation, maybe even a little arsenic in the sweet tea. I'm Southern. We've all thought about it. But the real revenge, the breathtaking kind, is becoming the woman you were always meant to be before someone convinced you your dreams were too big, too silly, too late. I started this YouTube channel when I was 73 because my granddaughter Lily said, "Nana, the world needs your voice." She set up the camera, showed me how to press record, and left me alone with a cup of tea and my stories. First video got 400 views, mostly family feeling sorry for me. Now we're at 1.2 million subscribers, and I still can't figure out how to use the fancy microphone Lily bought me. Doesn't matter. What matters is this. At 58, I thought my story was over. At 78, I know it had only just begun. The little miracles, they're still coming. The way the dough doubles in the bowl overnight when you weren't looking. The letter from a woman in Australia who baked her first successful loaf and forgave her mother. The cardinal that sits on my fence post every morning at 6:17, like clockwork, like a promise. Tripod, 17 years old now, mostly deaf, still wags his whole butt when I come home. Lily's baby due in March, she wants to name her Evelyn if it's a girl. And every Thursday night, the Rising Sisters still meet. Some of the original ones have died. Lord, we've lost a few. But new ones come, young ones with fresh heartbreak, old ones with ancient heartbreak. They bring wine, I bring bread, and we rise. We always rise. So if you're watching this and your heart is broken, if someone you loved chose someone else, if you think it's too late at 40 or 50 or 60 or 80 to start again, listen to an old woman who knows better. The message that destroyed my marriage became the yeast that raised my life. You are not the betrayal. You are the rising. And darling, you will be delicious. Now go make some bread, or paint that picture, or book that trip, or adopt that dog, or forgive that person, or don't. But whatever you do, live so brightly that the people who hurt you have to wear sunglasses. I love you. If this helped even one of you, hit that subscribe button. Lord knows I still haven't figured out the bell. Good night, darlings. Rise tomorrow. You're worth it. Close your eyes for just a second, sweet friend. Breathe in slow and let it out even slower. Whatever stole your light didn't kill your fire. It only showed you where the cracks were, so the light could pour out stronger. You are not behind. You are not too old, too broken, too late, or too much. You are exactly where the story needed you to be, so the next chapter could be the one people will talk about for generations. The same hands that once wiped tears are the hands that will plant gardens, hold babies, write books, turn pages, and lift other women up. Those hands still work miracles. They always did. One day, maybe years from now, you'll be sitting in a patch of sunshine you created yourself, and you'll realize the worst thing that ever happened to you was also the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you. Until then, keep going, keep rising, keep choosing yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You are the miracle you've been waiting for. And I am so proud of the woman you're becoming. I see her. She's breathtaking. Now open your eyes, darling. The dough is ready. Your life is ready. Go be delicious. Oh, my love, forever and always.